Honorable Congressman Edcel Lagman, and to all our comrades here. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Sponsor argues the divorce bill is not unconstitutional. With due respect to all, why is that so, Mr. Speaker?
The absolute divorce law bill, once it becomes a law, is constitutional. In other words, it is not unconstitutional. Despite the declaration of the norms and prescriptions in the Constitution, providing that marriage is an inviolable institution, that the marriage is the foundation of the family, and that marriage and family should be protected by the state. The Constitution does not prohibit the enactment of an absolute divorce law. Nowhere in our Constitution, as well as in the previous constitutions of 1935 and 1973, is there any provision prohibiting the legislature from enacting a divorce law. On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, the members of the Constitutional Commission of 1986 unanimously agreed, under the leadership of the late Father Joaquin Bernas, that the Congress of the Philippines can enact a divorce law. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, we submit that the enactment of the divorce law is constitutional. As a matter of fact, there are many other countries which have the same provisions in their constitution on the protection of marriage and the family, on the sanctity of marriage, but these countries have all legalized divorce, including all Catholic countries, all Christian countries, except the Philippines and the tiny ecclesiastical state of the Vatican. We submit, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that this bill, once it becomes a law, is constitutional. It is not prohibited by the Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Honorable Sponsor. However, Mr. Speaker, how can you interpret divorce law vis-a-vis the clear, categorical, and expressed letters of Section 2, Article 15 of the Constitution, which says, marriage as an inviolable social institution is the foundation of the family and shall be protected by the state? Mr. Speaker, because my understanding is that whatever transpired in the proceedings of the constitutional framers, the fact still remains that no one objected to the inviolability of marriage in the country. It was carried to the letters of the Constitution. It was the actual wordings of the Constitution, including marriage is inviolable, that the people ratified overwhelmingly, not the minutes of the transcript of the opinions of the framers, but emphasizing that marriage is inviolable. All dictionaries agree, especially the Oxford Dictionary. Inviolable simply clearly means incapable of being violated. Therefore, this letter of the Constitution should never be violated unless there is a change of the Constitution. Now, going back to the comment of the late Commissioner Gascon, by the way, yes, Mr. Speaker, I also want to state, just for the record, Commissioner Gascon introduced Section 2, Article 15 provisions. His intention was to discourage divorce in the Constitution. You can see the transcript on the screen. You can see the transcript on the screen. Just for the record, Mr. Speaker, what can you say about that, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, precisely the proceedings of the Constitutional Commission, as cited by the distinguished gentleman from Sibak Party List, would not be complete if we do not quote what subsequently transpired. No less than Commissioner Gascon said that these provisions on the inviolability of marriage does not prohibit Congress from enacting a divorce law. And that was the consensus without any objection from other members of the Constitutional Commission, including Father Bernas. Mr. Speaker, when we say inviolable, we set up a standard, a norm or prescription. It is not cast in stone. Because despite this provision in the Constitution, the commissioners said that Congress can pass an absolute divorce law. And in fact, no less than the Constitution does not prohibit Congress from enacting an absolute divorce law. In other words, inviolability would be a prescription, a norm, a standard, which is not cast in stone, as I have said, because many countries have similar or even identical provision, and they have the absolute divorce law, and in these countries, the law legalizing divorce is not deemed unconstitutional.
With due respect, Mr. Speaker and Honorable Sponsor, I maintain my absolute support to the very letters of the Constitution, that every letter of the Constitution must prevail over any remarks instantly made during the said Constitutional Commission hearing. However, let me go further. Let me move to my next point, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sponsor. Last time, the Honorable Rufus Rodriguez cited a barrage of empirical studies which lay down the evidence that divorce negatively impacts the well-being of the children. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sponsor, I would also like to show on the screen this study by the U.S. National Survey of Children's Health, which shows that children who live with both biological parents or two adoptive parents are less likely to have ever repeated a grade in school compared to those who live with their mother only or with one biological parent or a step-parent or in other family configurations such as with their father only or with foster parents. You can see that on the screen, Mr. Speaker. In addition, you can see here a wide percentage of gap. Both biological parents or two adoptive parents, the result of this survey, 6.5%, while step-parents, 21.8%, mother only, 19.9%, and others, 21.9%. My point is, speaking of the general welfare and greatest interest of the children, it is very, very clear that divorce will surely produce disastrous devastation and destruction in the future of the children. Now, Mr. Speaker, my question is in the light, I would like to add in this interpellation, in addition, divorce negatively affects children's educational across time. A Dutch study using data from 18 national surveys, I repeat, 18 national surveys in the Netherlands show that the negative effects on the educational attainment of children of divorced or separated parents is still persist even when divorce becomes socially acceptable. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sponsor, my question is, in light of overwhelming empirical evidence, is not the divorce bill in direct contradiction to Article 2, Section 13 of the Constitution, which says, and quote, the state recognizes the vital role of the youth in nation building and shall promote and protect their physical, moral, spiritual, intellectual, and social being. Shall we allow the destruction of the future of the youths of the land and destroying the golden opportunities for our beloved country to be transformed as a great nation of God, or the nation as a great nation in this earth? Yes, Mr. Speaker and Honorable Sponsor.
Mr. Speaker, there are more recent and current empirical studies which show that children of divorced parents fare much better than children of parents in conflict who do not obtain any divorce. And I would like to underscore that it is not the divorce itself which make children have deficiencies and anxieties. It is the situation before divorce, when children are exposed to the constant conflict and the toxic environment in failed, shattered marriages. That is the empirical study. It is not divorce which make these children having anxieties and deficiencies. It is prior to divorce, there are experience of conflict in the family. And this is now carried over in some cases to post-divorce. But in most cases, empirical studies worldwide, recent ones, more recent than the authorities cited by the Honorable Rufus Rodriguez, that they fare better, they are more resilient, they respect more authorities, and they respect the institution of marriage because they have learned from the experience of their parents. Scholars are now asserting that marital conflict, rather than divorce itself, is the single most critical determining factor in children's post-divorce adjustments. These inadequacies and anxieties are mitigated or even eliminated after the parents have divorced, since the children are no longer exposed to conflict. The long-term consequence for most children of divorced parents is resiliency rather than dysfunction. Co-parenting, albeit separate, is enhanced after the divorce since co-parenting is decreed by the court and parents seriously seek for the care of and affection from their children. These are documented empirical studies. And in the proposed bill, we have provided that the court will decree on co-parenting, custody, as well as support of children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, with due respect to our beloved honorable sponsor, we will validate if the studies, quote unquote, being cited by the honorable sponsor are true empirical research of studies or studies carried out by scholars. Because my staff checked the works cited by the sponsor last time, like the works of psychologist Kathy Hardy Williams, and found that it is more of a blog rather than a full-fledged research or study. I say this because, Mr. Speaker, in the literature of the effects of divorce on the well-being of children, practically all findings, I repeat, practically all findings go to the direction that divorce negatively impacts children in varying degrees. It is just surprising and unusual to encounter a study that says otherwise. Going on further, Mr. Speaker, there are empirical studies that say divorce dramatically increases the risk of the children's future marriage to also get divorced. The well-established phenomenon is called, and I quote, intergenerational transmission of divorce, unquote. Is the honorable sponsor aware of this well-documented phenomenon? This is not just a passe surveys. For example, Mr. Speaker, you can see on the screen the following studies. Number one, the transmission of marital instability across generations. Relationship skills or commitment to marriage by Paul Amato and Daniel DeBoer, 2001, published in Journal of Marriage and Family. Second, the unexpected legacy of divorce. Report of a 25-year study. I repeat, report of a 25-year study by Judith Wallerstein, 2004, published in Psychoanalytic Psychology Journal. Third, Understanding the Divorce Cycle. The Children of Divorce in Their Own Marriages, written by Nicholas Wolfinger, 2005. And fourth, last but not least, the intergenerational transmission of family dissolution. How it varies by social class origin and birth cohort by Alessandro Danaglio and Daniel O.S., 2023, published in European Journal Population. Mr. Speaker and beloved honorable sponsor,
Yes.
all of these support the findings that divorce begets divorce. Divorce results in fewer marriages, poorer marriages, and more divorces. This means that the children of divorced parents are insignificant risk of having their own marriages end up in divorce. Simply put, parental divorce is one of the best documented risk factors for marriage dissolution of children. These are empirical studies, not mere speculations. Hence, very clear, this could lead to vicious cycle of horrible damages to society. In fact, the works of Amato and De Boer said that if a woman's parents divorce, her odds of divorce increase 69%. While if both a husband and wife's parents divorce, the risk of divorce increased by 189%. What can you say about this, Mr. Speaker, and our highly esteemed honorable sponsor?
Mr. Speaker, the distinguished gentleman cited Amato as an author of one of the studies he mentioned. But let me cite Amato his study in 2011, recent. He said, conflict between family members was more important than the occurrence of the divorce in determining the children's welfare. Another study, newer research on the impact of divorce on children shows that when children have difficulties post-divorce, it is related to specific factors that are associated with divorce but are not a result of divorce itself. Rappaport, Deconstructing the Effects of Divorce on Children, 2003. Next, divorce actually provides children with the opportunity to develop in an environment with fewer stressors by removing children from high conflict household. Paul Amato et al. Reconsidering the Good Divorce, 2011. Recent researchers report that as the stressors decrease and children adjust to the changes in their lives, children's difficulties decrease. In fact, as children adjust to the divorce, they do better as compared to children of high conflict, non-divorced families. Navis Hittertone and Margaret Stanley Hagen. The Adjustment of Children with Divorced Parents, a Risk and Resiliency Perspective, Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry. Another, children of parents who divorce do not have a much higher frequency of mental health problems than their non-divorced counterparts. Whiteside and Betsy Jane Becker, Parental Factors and the Young Children's Post-Divorce Adjustment, a meta-analysis with implications for parenting arrangement, 2010. Most children do well post-divorce and do not seem different from their peers who are from intact families. Ellen Mavis, Social Support and the Adjustment of Children and Divorce and Remarried Families, 2003. Then, another study, there is no causal relationship between parental divorce and attachment insecurity, depression, or low esteem. Bernstein, Rosemary et al., Parental Divorce and Romantic Attachment in Young Adulthood, 2012. These are empirical studies which show that children in the post-divorce stage cope with difficulties, although these difficulties were there before the divorce and they are mitigated or corrected after the divorce. Now, let me ask, Mr. Speaker, if it is true that divorce is inimical to children, why are countries not repealing their divorce decrees? Why are countries legitimizing divorce? All countries except the Philippines and the Vatican. I would submit, Mr. Speaker, that there can be no unanimity in blunder in recognizing divorce in all of these countries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, honorable sponsor, I maintain the basic maxim that the general rule must prevail over the exceptions. Be that as it may, Mr. Speaker, honorable sponsor, my question is that given the foregoing empirical studies mentioned, would you not agree that the divorce bill contradicts the following constitutional provisions? I believe the wordings, the letters of our Constitution should not just be relegated to any perceptions or studies of some groups without a thorough research of the scholars. Because empirical means gained through experience, scientific experiments, and observation give rise to empirical data rather than on theory or logic. Like for instance, very, very clear, the Article 15, Section 1 of our precious Constitution. The state recognizes the Filipino family as the foundation of the nation. Accordingly, it shall strengthen its solidarity and actively promote its total development. So glaring in Article 2, Section 13, the state recognizes the vital role of the youth in nation building and shall promote and protect their physical, moral, spiritual, intellectual, and social being. Mr. Speaker and honorable sponsor, after knowing these empirical studies mentioned by this representation, I can recall Honorable Rufus Rodriguez last time demonstrating the destructive effects of divorce on children, both in the short term and long term. Do you still propose divorce bill is constitutional? I am afraid that we should not overlook the importance of the signs of the times, not because many countries are now succumbing to the will of the enemy of God, that legalization of divorce is becoming a natural trend. We should not forget the famous statement of Dr. Billy Graham during the prime years of his ministry. He categorically stated, as we are nearing to the second coming of Jesus Christ, the world will become worse and worse, but the faithful, obedient people of God will become better and better. Now, the Bible also, I suddenly remember this, not because many countries are now succumbing to the will, sorry to say, to the will of the enemy of God. As the Bible says in John 10:10, Jesus said, the thief, referring to Satan, cometh not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I came to give life and have it more abundantly. Citing that majority of countries in these last days are succumbing to the so-called Satan's will, I just want to remind everybody, especially our honorable sponsor, in Matthew 7:13, verse 14, enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in it by it. Because narrow is the gate, and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Just a simple reminder,